Hello again, and welcome back to English Active Listening. I'm Alyssa, and it is so good to be with you all again. I have to tell you a story about a time I was studying abroad, and I was so proud of my language skills. I was having a conversation with a friend from the host country, and he said something that I thought was a huge compliment. He told me, "Wow, you really have the hang of this." I thought he meant I was a natural, that I was a master of the language. So I smiled and said, "Thank you so much." But he just kind of looked at me strangely. It turned out he was talking about how I was handling my chopsticks. He was complimenting my dexterity, not my fluency. The words were simple, but I had completely missed the context. It was a small moment, but it taught me a huge lesson. There's so much more to a conversation than just the words themselves. It's the context, the tone, the silent gestures. And those are the things that often separate a good listener from a truly great one. Today, we're going to go on a new journey, a deep dive into the hidden world of spoken English. We're going to master the art of listening beyond the words. We'll learn how to pick up on the subtle clues that native speakers use all the time, without even realizing it. The cultural rules, the body language, and the subtext. This is where fluency truly begins. Not in a textbook, but in the spaces between the words. This is our masterclass on becoming a master listener. So get comfortable, get ready to listen in a whole new way, and let's begin. The foundation. Listening for the unspoken. So, the first key to unlocking this next level of listening is to understand that a conversation is never just a string of words. It's an entire ecosystem of meaning. And the single most important part of that ecosystem is context. Think of context like a map. Without a map, you can read all the street names and signs perfectly, but you still won't know where you are or where you're going. The words in a conversation are the street names, but the context is the map that gives them meaning. Let's take a simple phrase. Something we say every day, like, "That's a nice shirt." On its own, it seems like a straightforward compliment, right? But the meaning can change dramatically depending on the context. Imagine a friend says it to you at a coffee shop with a big smile on their face. It's a genuine compliment. But now imagine your boss says it to you at a formal meeting with a flat tone and a slight frown. Suddenly, it might sound more like a criticism, as if the shirt is not appropriate for the occasion. Or what if a sarcastic teenager says it while rolling their eyes? The words are exactly the same, but the meaning is completely different because the context has changed. A master listener doesn't just hear the words, they listen for the full picture. So, how do we do that? We become detectives, listening for the who, what, and where of every conversation. The who is about the relationship between the speakers. Are they family members, close friends, or strangers? The way we talk to a stranger is very different from how we talk to our best friend. A stranger might say, "Excuse me, could you tell me the time?" While a friend might just say, "Got the time?" The words are different, and so is the tone. A master listener listens to the relationship and adjusts their understanding. Then there's the what, the topic of the conversation. If you're talking about sports, a phrase like, "he's throwing a perfect game," means one thing. But if you're talking about a party, that same phrase might have a very different and possibly sarcastic meaning. And finally, the where, the location. The way people talk in a quiet library is totally different from how they talk at a loud rock concert. The noise, the physical closeness, and the purpose of the space all influence the words. A great way to practice this is to watch a short video clip without sound. Just pay attention to the who, what, and where. Watch the body language, the facial expressions, and the setting. Try to guess what the conversation is about. Then watch it again with the sound on. You'll be amazed at how much you understood just from the context. This trains your brain to listen for the whole picture, not just the words. The language of the body. Listening with your eyes now, let's talk about the most underrated listening tool we have. Our eyes. A huge part of any conversation is nonverbal communication. The language of the body. Native speakers use this language all the time, and it tells us so much about what's really being said. You see, our faces and bodies are constantly giving off clues that either match or contradict our words. A good listener learns to watch for these clues, and a master listener can read them like a book. Let's start with facial expressions. A smile, a frown, a wrinkled nose. These all tell you a story. If someone says, "I'm so happy for you," but their face is completely flat, you know something is wrong. You're not just listening to the words, you're listening to the facial expressions that give the words their real meaning. Then we have gestures, the movements of our hands and bodies. A simple shrug of the shoulders often means, "I don't know," or "I don't care." A thumbs up means, "Good job." These gestures are a huge part of the conversation, and learning them gives you a major advantage. And then there's the tone of voice. This is the music of our voice, the pitch, the volume, and the rhythm. Think about the phrase, "I'm fine." You can say it with a bright, happy, and high pitch, and it means you're fine. But you can also say it with a low, flat pitch and a long, drawn-out rhythm. "I'm fine." And suddenly, you know that the person is absolutely not fine at all. This is subtext, the meaning beneath the words. The tone of voice is like a secret code that gives you the real information. And a master listener learns to listen for the code, not just the words. A fun way to practice this is to listen to a short audio clip and try to guess what the speaker is feeling, just from their voice. Are they angry, happy, bored? Then listen again and try to pinpoint exactly which words or sounds gave you that feeling. The cultural compass. Understanding the why. Now we're getting into the advanced stuff. The part of listening that textbooks almost never talk about, culture. You see, the rules of a conversation are not the same all over the world, even in English. Different cultures have different expectations about how we speak and listen. If you don't know these cultural rules, you might be missing the whole point of a conversation. One of the biggest cultural differences in English is between direct and indirect communication. In some cultures, like in parts of the United States, we tend to be more direct. If we want something, we often say it directly. But in other cultures, like in the United Kingdom, they often use a more indirect approach. For example, if someone in the UK wants you to close the window, they might not say, "Close the window." They might say, "It's a bit cold in here, isn't it?" The speaker expects you to understand the real meaning from the context, and they avoid the direct command to be more polite. A master listener learns to listen for these indirect clues and understands that sometimes what's not being said is just as important as what is being said. Another huge part of the cultural compass is idioms. These are phrases that don't mean what the individual words suggest, like "break a leg" or "it's raining cats and dogs." These phrases are everywhere in English, and you have to learn them to understand native speakers. But don't just memorize them. listen for them in context. When you hear an idiom you don't know, try to guess the meaning from the situation. For example, if your boss says, "Let's touch base on that later," and you know they're talking about a project, you can probably guess that touch base means to get in contact or to talk about it later. The context is your best friend when learning idioms. And finally, we have small talk. Small talk is that light, casual conversation we have with people we don't know well. In many English-speaking cultures, small talk is a social lubricant. It's how we build relationships and get to know each other. The topics are usually simple: the weather, your weekend, or a new movie. But the purpose of small talk is not really about the topics themselves. It's about showing that you're friendly, approachable, and interested in connecting with others. A master listener understands that small talk is not just a waste of time. It's a valuable practice for listening to the nuances of conversation and building rapport. Your master listener's practice plan. Now, how do you take all of this knowledge and turn it into a real-world skill? You have to practice. But you have to practice smart. You need to create an active listening habit that goes beyond just hearing the words. First, I want you to try something new. Let's call it the observation journal. Find a short video clip, maybe a scene from a movie or a TV show. Watch it once with the sound on, and then once with the sound off. In a notebook or a note on your phone, write down what you observe about the people in the scene. Don't write down any words. Instead, write down things like, "The woman's eyebrows are raised, so she's probably surprised." Or, "The man's voice is low and slow, so he's probably feeling sad." Or, "The woman is standing with her arms crossed, so she's probably feeling defensive." This will train your brain to listen with your eyes and your ears at the same time, and to actively look for those nonverbal cues that tell you the real story. Next, you need to practice with role-playing and conversation scenarios. This is where you put yourself in a hypothetical situation and think about how you would listen and respond. I'll give you a scenario. You are at a coffee shop and a friend is talking to you about their new job. You notice that their tone is a little flat and they are avoiding eye contact. What do you listen for? You listen for the subtext. You hear their words, but you also pay attention to their tone and body language. And you understand that they might not be as happy as they are trying to sound. This prepares you for real-world interactions and trains you to listen for all the layers of a conversation. And finally, I want you to have an active listener's checklist. This is a powerful mental tool you can use in every conversation you have. In your head, just run through this checklist as you listen. What is the context of this conversation? Who, what, where? What are the nonverbal cues telling me? Facial expressions, body language. What is the tone of voice? Emotion, pitch, volume. Is there any subtext or an indirect message here? Are there any idioms or phrases I don't know? This simple mental checklist will force you to listen for all the things we talked about today, and it will quickly become a natural part of your listening process. So we've covered a lot today. We started by talking about the importance of context. We learned how to listen with our eyes by paying attention to nonverbal cues and the tone of voice. We explored the cultural compass of English and the power of indirect communication and idioms. And we ended with a simple yet powerful practice plan. I want you to remember that listening is an art, not just a science. It's not about hearing every single word perfectly. It's about understanding the whole picture. It's about empathy, curiosity, and connection. You have the words, you have the grammar. Now you have the tools to master the language on a whole new level. I'm so proud of the progress you're making. Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep getting better every day. Thank you for joining me today on English Active Listening. I'm Alyssa, and I look forward to helping you on your English learning journey in our next session. Until then, keep those ears open and keep practicing. You've got this.